All right, Ronan MMA, welcome back to the channel. Now, Conor McGregor has been doing what Conor McGregor does, and he has been tweeting. That's what he does, okay? And he has decided that he is going to take shots at some of the best coaches that we have ever seen in MMA in an attempt to lift up his own coach, which is quite strange because all of the coaches that he mentioned have accolades way beyond what John Kavanaugh has. And, I'm not doing this to disrespect John Kavanaugh in any way, shape, or form. I think he's a fine coach, and perhaps we see him have champions or success, in the future. But with that being said, as of right now, his coach, John Kavanaugh, cannot hold a candle to any of the mentioned coaches in his Twitter post. I want to go over all of the coaches that he decided he was going to shit on. I want to talk about their accolades, and at the end of the video, I'm going to compare them to those of John Kavanaugh. And again, I'm not doing this to disrespect Kavanaugh. I you know I just I think it's pretty ridiculous. Sometimes his tweets are like whatever, but when you're gonna take shots at some of the best coaches we've ever seen, it's just kind of strange when so objectively, like in metrics, in terms of accolades and championships and all of that, your coach isn't even comparable. And so we're gonna start it off. I know in no particular order. I've just written notes. I don't remember the order he put them in his tweet. It doesn't really fucking matter. But one of the ones he mentioned was Javier Mendez. Now Javier Mendez may seem like a much more capable coach than he is, due to all of the Dagestani fighters that have recently, joined their gym in the last, I don't know, 5 years or so, 10 years maybe even. A lot of them came to him almost complete, right, from Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov. However, we did see Habib make multiple, improvements in regards to striking, as well as Islam Makhachev. Now, some of the Dagestani guys came already really good wrestlers, but the two main ones that are champions, we have absolutely seen Javier Mendez have an effect on. Islam Makhachev in particular, he is a much better striker than Habib ever was. But even towards the end of Habib's reign at lightweight, we saw his striking improve quite a bit compared to his earlier fights, which was almost necessary to be competing at a championship level. And I would absolutely credit Javier Mendez with that, because he was, in his heyday, a phenomenal kickboxer, okay, elite level striker. He may not look like it today because, as Conor McGregor said, he's pretty fat, and that is true. But he was at one point in time an elite striker, and even without his Dagestani champions, he also is the only coach to ever have three concurrent world champions at three different weight classes in the UFC at one point in time: Luke Rockhold, Daniel Cormier, and Cain Velasquez, obviously. So, I mean, right off rip, Javier Mendez, 5 champions out of his gym in the UFC alone, is pretty impressive. A double champ in Daniel Cormier, and, one of the best heavyweights of all time. Just incredible accolades, okay? And yeah, he's fat, but he's a hell of a fucking coach, okay? And I know that some of these guys may be kind of aging out due to just MMA evolving in general. Like, we see guys like Eric Nixick and things like that having phenomenal success, and they're kind of like the new age of MMA coaches. But all of the ones he mentioned are fucking staples and have been for a very long time now. If you're liking the content or this video, please like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. It's free, fast. You'll forget you even did it in an hour, so just hit that button. It's no issue to you. Come on now. All right, next one. Trevor Whitman almost had 3 concurrent champions. He would have been the second coach to do so. He had Rose Namajunas, obviously, at strawweight, which, despite what you may think of Rose after the Carla Esparza performance, I kind of blame Pat Barry for whatever fucking mental issues Rose Namajunas might have. I don't think that Trevor Whitman would be to blame at all. I really do wish that when Rose Namajunas would fight, she would listen to Trevor Whitman more than she would Pat Barry. During that fight with Carla Esparza, Pat Barry was the one in her face telling her, "You're doing fine. Don't listen to the boos. The boos mean you're winning," and all of this shit, and led her to one of the worst fights we have ever seen, and then obviously losing her championship. But I do believe that Trevor Whitman is, responsible, or, partially responsible for her success at strawweight. And then he had Justin Gaethje as an interim champion. Now, obviously, that didn't last long because he in the title unification bout with Khabib Nurmagomedov, lost. He lost the bout. He got finished pretty quickly, and whatever. He did almost, hurt Khabib's leg, whichever. I don't know. Not that it really matters. He got absolutely dominated in that fight. But with that being said, he took him all the way to a interim championship in one of the most, deep divisions in the whole of the UFC. And then he also was Kamaru Usman's coach for the vast majority of his title reign. I know that he initially was with Henry Hooft. I think it was after the first Jorge Masvidal fight. I can't quite remember, but at some point he left because he realized he wasn't making any improvements with the striking and things just felt stale. And then when we saw him go to Trevor Whitman, we saw him begin to dominate guys. There's the one moment that is quite famous, with Gilbert Burns. He says, "You're a champion because of your jab." He goes out there just jabbing Gilbert Burns' face off, ends up dropping him with a jab and finishing him. He KO'd Jorge Masvidal brutally with Trevor Whitman in his corner. He beat Colby Covington a second time, kinda. And then, the rest. He was his coach for the vast majority. We absolutely saw Kamaru Usman, who, to be fair, was already a champion, make massive improvements, though, which probably added to his title reign, because you cannot be one-dimensional at a championship level, and we've kind of seen that now, that even though he made improvements, when you get an absolute elite striker who can defend takedowns with the best of them, Kamaru Usman still doesn't have much for guys like Leon Edwards, but Trevor Whitman is absolutely to credit for a lot of Kamaru Usman's success. Okay, the next guy, Viras Zahabi. Now, this is one where you could argue he is on par, kind of, with John Kavanagh. However, there would be a caveat there, because his one UFC champion was a hell of a lot more successful than Conor McGregor ever was as a champion, right? Obviously, George St. Pierre. So George St. Pierre had what? I think it was 8 title defenses or something like that. Viras Zahabi was part of George St. Pierre's corner always, but he also had, he had Viras, he had John Danaher, he had Greg Jackson, and he had one other guy who is escaping me, and I wish that it wasn't. But he had, essentially the dream team until he got head kicked by Matt Serra, in which case he decided to go with Viras Zahabi full-time and, have Viras be his one and only head coach. We then saw him, obviously come back, get revenge, get back that loss against Matt Serra, and then I believe remained undefeated after that point. And multiple world championships, and then went up to middleweight and finished Michael Bisping for the middleweight champion. But besides George St. Pierre, which is the obvious one for Viras Zahabi, he had also Rory MacDonald. Now, Rory MacDonald had a pretty successful career in the UFC. He never quite made it to championship. He almost did, though. Robbie Lawler finished him in that 5th round, obviously, shattering his fucking nose brutally. But Rory MacDonald, whenever I hear guys make arguments that, Bellator has the better champion, I'm like, fucking shut up, dude. They have, yeah, it's okay. They look great, but who are they looking great against? It's not, I don't think it's comparable. And maybe that's a hot take. Maybe you guys disagree with me, but for the vast majority of the champions that get named, I'm like, no, I just simply don't agree. Rory MacDonald, though, was one of those ones where at the time you could actually argue he was the better champ. Bellator had the better welterweight champion, because I believe he was champion at the same time as Tyron Woodley was the UFC's welterweight champion. And for those of you that don't know or don't remember or whatever, it slipped your mind, Rory MacDonald beat the brakes off of Tyron Woodley and had an almost flawless performance. He beat him on all 3 judges' scorecards, 30-27. And then when he went over to Bellator after the Robbie Lawler fight, or sometime thereafter, and remained champion at 170 pounds for quite a long time, his career didn't start to really take a dive until he attempted to go up in weight and fight Gegard Mousasi, who might be the other one, where Bellator had a champion that may be better than the UFC's champion. After that, we saw him kind of drop off, but in his heyday, Rory McDonald was phenomenal, and I truly believe that if Firas Zahabi would just move, right, because especially after the last 3 years and the way that the Canadian government handled those issues, I would highly doubt that any high-level fighter from anywhere would want to come to Canada to train, okay, because it sucks here, all right? Now, next coach, Greg Jackson. Everybody knows him for John Jones, but dude, the way that I determine whether or not a coach is truly a great coach is like, can they duplicate their results? Okay, and Greg Jackson can, and he's proved that, right? A good example of a guy who hasn't really shown that he can duplicate his results is Matt Hume, who isn't even Mighty Mouse's coach anymore because it was a conflict of interest. He was like part owner or had some role ambassadorship in one championship. But Mighty Mouse was really his like only notable pupil, right? And Mighty Mouse might just be one of the freak fucking athletes where Matt Hume just got lucky that he walked into his gym and not somebody else's. Now they do have a very good relationship, and Demetrius Johnson has been, he's praised Matt Hume quite a bit and talked about his genius, or so he thinks. And so Greg Jackson, most people would know him for John Jones. Now, I wouldn't give him credit for John Jones because I think that's just a once-in-a-lifetime athlete that happened to come to your gym instead of somebody else's, and a little lucky there. But we also have guys like Donald Cowboy Cerrone, Diego Sanchez, Clay Guida, light heavyweight champion Rashad Evans, and of course Holly Holm, UFC bantamweight champion, knocked out Ronda Rousey and then lost her title shortly thereafter, but also should have won the featherweight championship against Jermaine Durandamy, which, was bullshit. But Greg Jackson has proved time and time again that he can, in fact, duplicate his results, and he had won Coach of the Year on multiple occasions, okay? And, great coach, great gym in general. They've had some issues and some dramas where, like, with Rashad Evans, they kind of let him go because he was the old guy, and they knew that John Jones was going to be their guy moving on forward. So, they've done some shady shit. They did it to Cowboy, too, with, who the fuck was it? Mike Perry. And then Cowboy armbarred him, which is funny. So it sometimes works in their favor, sometimes doesn't. Okay, now the next coach. Also, Trevor Whitman is one Coach of the Year, I believe, as well. We talked about him already. But Matt Brown. What? He has Dustin Poirier, interim lightweight champion. He has Joanna, who ran through the strawweight division, still holds the record for amount of title defenses at that division. Colby Covington, when he won his interim championship, was training out of American Top Team, and Matt Brown was the main coach in the corner there. He's also got Jorge Masvidal, and currently, again, I know I mentioned that I don't think that Bellator champions are really on par. I've heard a lot of guys try to argue that these two are, but again, who the fuck have they fought? That's my problem. They can look fantastic against the guys that they're fighting in Bellator. I don't know that they would look as good as they do fighting against guys in the UFC, but with that being said, he's got the Bellator welterweight and middleweight champion, Johnny Eblin, and the Ukrainian guy Asimov. So I can't remember his name off the top of my head. My apologies, and I get that ATT's a big gym, and they've got other coaches like that Conan Silveira guy. And I don't know what Conan Silveira does other than fucking try to calm you down. Because whenever he was in Colby Covington's corner, that was kind of breathe. Colby Covington's telling him, I think my jaw's broken, and Conan Silveira's like telling him to just fucking breathe. I'm like, okay, dude, like, sure, we're gonna break him. Just really slowly, calmly talking. That's basically his corner style. Whereas Matt Brown does give technical advice and things like that. And as I mentioned, tons of high-level elite fighters came out of his gym. Now we've gotten to the main event, okay? Conor McGregor's coach, John Kavanagh, whose notable pupils are Conor McGregor, and that's it. I mean, I'm kidding, but kinda. I'm not really kidding, because here's the thing. We've seen good guys fight with John Kavanagh in their corner, like Gunnar Nelson just this past weekend, but Gunnar Nelson's never been in the talks for like championships or anything like that. He may have been ranked in the top 15 at one point, but I don't think he was ever higher than that. And while I really like Gunnar Nelson and I think that he's a great fighter, we've already heard the commentary team talking about how Gunnar Nelson's mentioned that he's not going to be fighting much longer. He prefers coaching and things like that. And which means there's no championship aspirations there. So we don't have another champ in Gunnar Nelson. You know, besides that, we've got guys that are really good at beating up gas station attendants or, you know, cashiers at Save On Foods or something like that in James Gallagher and Dylan Dennis, right? But wait, Dylan Dennis can't even beat up strangers because that random fat fucking security guard was able to take his back and submit him when Dylan Dennis is supposed to be known for his elite grappling, which is fucking crazy. And then Dylan Dennis gets punched in the face, as we all know on that video leading up to the KSI shit. And then he pulls out of the KSI fight. And then, you know, Conor McGregor's got to go fucking try to defend him on Ariel Helwani's show because he's his bitch. I mean, Jesus Christ, dude. Who else? Like, bro, they've got Johnny Walker right now, right? Ian Gary doesn't even train out of there. Ian Gary trains out of fucking Sanford MMA, if I'm not mistaken, in Las Vegas, which is, I think, Eric Nixick's there. And I think, yeah, I think it's Eric Nixick. Either way. Oh, how the fuck could I, dude? I forgot about the GOAT of the sport. Okay. Well, this changes everything. John Kavanagh coached the greatest fighter of all time, the GOAT himself. Choo-choo, motherfuckers. Artem Lobov, okay? So maybe John Kavanagh is a better coach than I thought he was. So, my apologies. No. But in all seriousness, dude, John Kavanagh ain't holding a candle to any of these guys. And I'm not saying that to be disrespectful to John Kavanagh. A lot of it might be luck, right? If you're in the United States of America, you've probably got a better chance of getting some high-level talent showing up at your gym. But again, what I talked about in duplicating results and things like that, all of the aforementioned coaches have been able to do that. John Kavanagh had a once-in-a-lifetime athlete walk into his gym in Conor McGregor. He coached him, to his credit, to championship status, right? Double champ status, of course. Maybe the most undeserving double champ in all of the UFC's history, but the first one. So, you know, regardless, he did a good job at that, but you know, he hasn't proven to me that he can duplicate results. He hasn't had another fighter even come close to championship level. Except, of course, Artem Lobov. I'm sorry I disrespected John Kavanagh ever. Artem, don't do anything, okay? But also, Artem Lobov's absolutely not there anymore because he's the rat, right? I don't know, but I thought it was strange. I thought Conor McGregor could have gone about this a different way. Obviously, it's Conor McGregor, so why the fuck would he go about things a different way than, you know, he does? But you could have praised your coach without shitting on all these other coaches. And I don't think that John Kavanagh, I don't think we're ever going to see really John Kavanagh have like another Conor McGregor ever again. Because I think that that was mostly luck. And like, I mean, you could say the same about Viras Sahabi with George St. Pierre, but we see him duplicate results with Rory McDonald. Maybe not in the UFC, but in Bellator. And Rory McDonald was pretty fucking dominant in Bellator. And as I said, 30-27 to the current champion in the UFC. So these are my thoughts on Conor McGregor's tweet, which is pretty pathetic. Now, if you've got any ideas on topics I could do, put them in the comments below. My picks video will come out tomorrow. I've just still got a few more fights to watch. A couple more fights I got to make picks on, and then I will release that video tomorrow morning. So thank you all for watching. Like and subscribe, and I will see you at the next video. Bye-bye.